Hey guys, welcome back to Kubrick Corner with me, Sean Wilson. Been a while since I've done one of these, but we're in a place that's very, very special to my heart today. We're in the beautiful Watershed Cinema in Bristol, and I'm joined by Sven. Hello,
Hi
mate.
guys,
It's the first guest spot I've had on my YouTube channel.
and it's an honour.
Yeah. We're here to talk to you about the LFF, the London Film Festival for 2017. But before we do, Sven, I wonder if you could introduce yourself and what your role is here at Bristol's glorious Watershed.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Sven. I'm originally from Belgium, but I've been living in Bristol for a couple of years, and I work here at Watershed, one of the country's, I think, best independent cinemas. And I work here as a box office supervisor. I'm really happy that Bristol has a place such as Watershed. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're here to talk about one of the premier film festivals of this year, which is the London Film Festival, and quite an interesting lineup of films this year. Which we're now going to talk about.
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting about the London Film Festival. The London Film Festival always takes place in October, and that is always like the tail end of the festival season. So basically, it captures all the other films from other film festivals. Because the film festival year always kicks off with Berlin in February, then you have Cannes in May, and then you have the trinity of Toronto, Telluride, and Venice in September. And the London Film Festival always sort of plays as like a best of all these film festivals. So it's like a massive program with about 250 titles. So it's really hard to pick some favorites, but this is exactly actually what we're going to do today.
Yeah, well, I'll kick things off with Call Me By Your Name, which is the new film from Luca Guadagnino. I hope I pronounced that correctly. The filmmaker behind I Am Love and A Bigger Splash, which was the remake of Swimming Pool, the French film from the 1960s starring Alain Delon. Many will no doubt have already heard about this. It's received really quite rapturously extraordinary reviews over the first few months this year, and it's showing at the LFF. The basic storyline is that Timothy Chalamet is a young teenager grappling with identity and sexuality who is attracted to his professor father's research assistant, and it plays out against these very, very sun-dappled backdrops in Italy, adapted from the novel by James Ivory by Andre Ackerman, by James Ivory from the novel by Andre Ackerman, I should say. And yeah, it looks like one of those really sort of sensual, very, very beautiful sort of coming of age like this summer. After this summer, it will never be the same sort of movies, of which there have been a few like interesting subjects on that recently. There's been like God's Own Country, which dealt with the issue of same-sex romance, and there've been a lot of really, really sensitively judged and really critically acclaimed movies this year. So is this on your radar?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think the film Call Me By Your Name played in Sundance this year. Before that, it was really quiet about that film. Nobody really knew what to expect. But then like all the reviews came out of Sundance, and it's a bit unfortunate, but people have been calling it this year's Moonlight, which I think is very unfair.
Yeah.
But it's great that once again we have a very interesting film tackling really interesting themes like a lot of LGBT themes and growing up. But I do think that this film is nothing like Moonlight. It's probably going to be its own thing, and I can't wait to see it. In the meanwhile, Luca Guadagnino is already working on his next film, a Suspiria remake,
yes,
which is probably going to come out probably this time next year, I presume.
Scored by Tom York,
yeah,
which should be very, very interesting. Yeah, replacing Goblin. So yeah, that's really, really one to look out for. So that's my first choice. What's yours?
I want to go by actually a Russian film. It's a film called Loveless by the filmmaker. This is tongue twister. Andrei Ziarintsev.
Nice.
He's held in high esteem amongst a lot of film fans. He sort of like bursted on the art house scene about 10 years ago with a film called The Return. He made Elena and The Banishment, but it was not until a film called Leviathan, I think 3 years ago.
It was an extraordinary
film.
That
was a really good film, and he's a filmmaker who's always sort of like critique, like he always lives like a sly critique on Russian society, which is not very, very easy nowadays in the regime of Putin. And it seems that he doesn't really change his recipe with his newest film called Loveless, which played in Cannes, where it picked up the jury prize. This film deals with a couple who are going through a divorce, but throughout their divorce they actually have to get together again to look for their son who got missing during one of their arguments. So he uses that, sort of like the background of Russia and Russian politics to tell like a much smaller story about a family that's falling apart and coming back together. A lot of critics have been hailing it and giving it really good write-ups, such as Owen Kleberman from Variety, who called it compelling and forbidding and an ominous, reverberating look on corruption in Russia as a society rather than its politics, which I think is really interesting.
Well, it sounds thematically quite similar to Leviathan, which was similarly about one man in the face of this overwhelmingly like oppressive like Russian society that wants to like crush people, and there was that very, very famous scene in that where the images of all the presidents were taken pot shots at, which I was quite stacked in that film. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's not going to be the feel-good film of the week.
Exactly.
But it's going to be hard and bleak, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a very rewarding watch.
Rewarding bleakness. I mean, next one I was going to talk about was Last Flag Flying, which is a new film from Richard Linklater. And any year in which we get a new film by Richard Linklater is clearly something to be championed. So this stars Steve Carell, Lawrence Fishburne and Bryan Cranston. I mean, just with that cast alone, that's extraordinary. You can couple them with Richard Linklater and this is really, really special. So they are 3 Vietnam War veterans who reunite in this spiritual sequel, apparently, to the Jack Nicholson film The Last Detail from the 1970s, which I really, really liked. And that's one of Jack Nicholson's best films. And they are there to bury the Steve Carell's son who has died in the Iraq War, and then what then follows is a story of male friendship, a road trip in part. And typical Richard Linklater, it looks like it's going to take a very, very understated, very staged view of people in all their forms, with all their frailties, with all their strengths, which is what Linklater obviously does. But clearly this, in contrast to his previous film Everybody Wants Some, which was set in the 80s and was a nostalgia fest, this is obviously pitched at a very, very different generational divide. And on the basis of the trailer, I mean, it looks very, very, very moving and very wise, but then that's what we've come to expect from.
Yeah, what I like about it is that Linklater is such an unpredictable filmmaker, and you never really know what he's going to come up next.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I can expect a spiritual follow-up to The Last Detail from any other filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like last year, he came up with a spiritual successor for Dazed and Confused. Now he does the same thing for The Last Detail, a film that people have sort of like forgotten about. But I really hope that this film is also going to bring the original Hal Ashby classic back into the limelight. Because as you said, it's a film that's really worth to discover or rediscover. I mean, anyone watching, see The Last Detail in preparation for this, because it's seriously good. And obviously, if you need to catch up on your Richard Linklater as well, to do that. So that's a really strong start with those two. What have you got next on your currently as we're recording it, I think the Venice Film Festival is coming to its end, and one of the films that got the best reviews, really glowing reviews, and a lot of people have been tipping it for the Golden Lion, which will be awarded tomorrow, and that is the film The Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, by Martin McDonagh. Martin McDonagh, he's originally a playwright. He wrote some really, really interesting plays before, and then he bursted onto the film scene with In Bruges, with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, in which I actually have a cameo. I don't know if I ever mentioned this.
You had a cameo in Bruges?
I'm in one of the scenes.
This is an exclusive. I didn't know this. Right, okay.
Blink with your eyes and you miss me. But I'm in the film for 5 seconds, and I was on the set for a day, which is really nice.
That's awesome.
And he hasn't really made a film since In Bruges, which is it's been already like 10 years, I think.
Yeah, because he did. It was Seven Psychopaths he did, didn't he?
He did Seven Psychopaths in 2011, which sort of came and went.
Yeah, it was a bit sour.
But apparently this film is really, really strong, and it stars as Frances McDormand. Nobody plays like a sourpuss like Frances McDormand.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And she plays a mother of a daughter who was brutally murdered, and she's trying to battle the police to investigate her daughter's murder. Sorry, but they're apparently too occupied with apparently tormenting black people in this little town in Missouri. So obviously, like, McDonough is using like racial politics anno 2017 to tell its like bigger story, which I think sounds really, really interesting. It also has a very good supporting cast: Woody Harrelson, John Hawkes, Peter Dinklage, and Sam Rockwell. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri. It's
Trips off the tongue.
It's quite a mouthful. But
well, it's interesting that Martin McDonough is now sticking with the American landscape theme after Seven Psychopaths, because clearly in Bruges was very concerned with not only Bruges but with the fact that it's Irish, 2 Central Irish characters like played by Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. Now he's clearly still looking at American society, which I didn't think that worked very well in Seven Psychopaths. I thought it lost it a little bit, but hopefully
it was a bit loony and cartoony, and it didn't really come off the ground. So,
yeah. It sounds like this one's got its basis with Francis McDormand's central performance. By the sounds of it, it's all grounded by that.
And apparently, it's also like very it's a good melange, a mix between like really dog biting, skating humor, and something that's just really, really funny. So.
Well, great, yeah. I mean, again, like Richard Linklater, any year which we get a new film from Martin McDonough is fantastic. I next want to talk about the Florida Project, which is directed by Sean Baker, who made Tangerine a couple of years ago, which I think I saw in this very screen, actually. I think I sat just over there, which was a film that was famously shot on a mobile phone using an anamorphic adapter. Great film, real punky, sort of raw, street level movie. I mean, the sort of movie you could, if John Waters was coming up through the ranks now, you could sort of imagine him doing that, dealing with like real vibrant street level characters. There was plenty of like ribald, quite gross out humour in places as well. But this one, it looks like he's dialed back that sense of sort of anarchy by the sounds of it, in this story of a young girl who has grown up in a motel in Florida. So again, there is the Florida connection here. I mean, I'm assuming this is like Tangerine. This must be a love letter to the environment that he knows. And her interactions with the people at this motel, which includes, in a rare sympathetic performance, Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, I think he plays like a sympathetic night manager of this motel,
which doesn't
really,
sound.
really looking forward to.
I mean, you hear like Willem Dafoe night manager, you think, oh no, but I mean, obviously he's played sympathetic characters before in Platoon and everything, but it's been a while. And I really, really like what Sean Baker did in Tangerine, which is to take it, that real gritty essence of like, wow, I believe in these people. And apparently the young girl, Brooklyn Prince, is meant to be absolutely sensational from what I've heard. I believe it's showing at the Toronto Film Festival, is it? But yeah, it's been very well received.
Because it also played at the Cannes Film Festival, at the Sundance Film Festival. But for some reason, it played in one of the sidebars in Cannes, so not the main competition. But apparently, everyone was singling out that was like a grove mistake by the programmers, and that it should have been in the main competition.
Okay.
A lot of people said it was like one of the best things that they saw in Cannes. So
right.
I'm really looking forward.
And I didn't get consideration.
No, which is unfortunate. But yeah, as you said, Tangerine was such a burst of joy from start to finish, and it had that like really tumultuous energy. And only if he manages to translate like 50% of that energy to this film, it's still something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think he's one of the most exciting upcoming directors at the moment. Well, this is a really, really interesting mix so far. What's next on your list?
I'm going to go for a South American film, a film from Chile, which is a film called Una Mujer Fantástica. Sorry, my Spanish is not as good.
No, it's better than mine.
A fantastic woman. It's by Chilean filmmaker Sebastián Lelio, who made Gloria a couple of years ago. I don't know if you managed to see that.
I don't think I saw Gloria.
Played at this cinema and a lot of other cinemas all around the country. And this is a film that I played in Berlin, and it's about this a waitress who's sort of like moonlighting as a nightclub singer, and she's a transgender waitress, and she's dating this much older man who has a whole family, but when the man dies, she needs to confront like the man's family and comes to terms with her identity.
Okay.
So this got really, really good reviews, and I really liked Sebastián Lelio's previous film. So that's something I'm really looking forward to, because it's also the debut for this trans actress from Brazil called Daniela Veiga. Yeah, and I can't wait to see what she's doing with this role. But now, yeah, after this, Sebastian Lelio, he's ready to step up to the big league because he has a film in the works with Rachel Weisz and Rachel McAdams.
Oh, okay.
Which they play lesbian lovers.
Right.
Called Disobedience, which is now playing in Toronto. And I think next year he's going to remake his own Chilean film Gloria with Julianne Moore in the main role. So yeah, apparently this was sort of like one of his calling cards. This film is also produced by Pablo Larraín, who last year directed Chucky and The Club.
One of the greats,
one of the great Chilean directors.
Yeah,
definitely something like stirring in the Chilean waters. Because we had a lot of really good filmmakers hailing from Chile over the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. And again, yet another film in 2017 that deals with themes of identity and sexuality. There's been a lot of really, really provocative, very interesting films this year on that. So yeah, that sounds very, very interesting. Wasn't one that I was aware of on the programme, but that sounds very, very interesting. Next one I wanted to talk about was Downsizing, which is Alexander Payne's new film. Alexander Payne, I don't think he's actually made a bad film so far. He might, he might. This is the director behind like Election, About Schmidt, Sideways, The Descendants, Nebraska. I don't think there's a drop stitch among any of those. I mean, maybe you could say The Descendants is a bit softer than the others. Although I watched it again recently, I was like, oh no, it's not actually as soft as I remember it. It has got more of a bitter sting to it, which is good. That's a typical Alexander Payne thing. He deals with characters who are crabby and neurotic and difficult. And in this new film, which played at Venice and did very well, it's a situation whereby people reap the benefits of miniaturising themselves. And they realise that, for example, if whatever assets they possess when they are normal size then become magnified when they are smaller. But then, of course, as with all of these social satires, there is a downside to this. Stars Matt Damon, Kristen Wiig, Christoph Waltz. I mean, the prospect of Alexander Payne working with actors as good as that.
And also with that premise.
Yes, exactly.
Alexander actually doing a little bit of like sci-fi, which is really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Payne doing sci-fi because he's proven that he can do the studies of Middle America, the road trip movie, obviously seen in the likes of Nebraska. He really seems like he's stepping outside of what he's done before with this, which is very exciting.
Yeah, but also I do think like just like a film like Eternal Sunshine, like you come in for the sci-fi concept, but you sort of like stay for like the human emotions.
Yeah,
he's just using that to exploring really interesting human characters and relationships between people.
Yeah, well, I suppose the other thing is with Matt Damon as well, that Matt Damon's had a very, very good film festival season because Suburbicon has shown at Venice. I don't believe that's being shown at the LFF, as it's my knowledge. It's the George Clooney social satire, but yeah, it's obviously a very, very good period for him. But yeah, so that Downsizing by Alexander
Payne. Because Downsizing, it's like one of Alexander Payne's passion projects because he wrote it about like 15 years ago.
Right.
And 10 years ago, I read the first screenplay. Somebody sent me the first screenplay, and I was like, "Ooh, this is really ambitious. I'm really wondering to see how he's going to make this." And obviously, it has taken him quite a while. He took a couple of detours, but I'm really happy to see that he finally got it made.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, great to see an idiosyncratic director getting one of his most personal ideas off the ground. So from Downsizing to...
I'm going to stay in South America for now. I just talked about Fantastic Women, but now I want to talk about a film called Zama by Lucrecia Martel. And Lucrecia Martel, she's one of those best filmmakers you never really heard about before. I think 10 years ago she made a film called The Headless Woman, a film that is hailed by many as one of the best films of this decade or this current century. And I think it is really good what she does, how she explores sort of like the Argentinian identity and the society. And now she has a period piece that she just finished, a film called Zama. It's like, normally it was going to come out last year, but then nothing really happened. A lot of people were expecting to see it in Cannes. It never played in Cannes, but now it played in Venice, and now it's playing at the LFF. And it tells the story of a Spanish officer, an officer of the Spanish crown, who's in South America, and he's waiting for a letter from the king to be reposted somewhere else. But he's sort of like waiting for a Godot because that letter never really seems to arrive.
Right.
This film is an adaptation of a book by Antonio Benedetto, and it's one of those South American classics. And yeah, I can't wait to see what Lucrecia Martel is going to do with that book. And with a period piece. So yeah, I'm really excited for it.
So another very, very vibrant filmmaker on the international filmmaking scene there, which is one of the many things that the LFF does. So magnificently. It showcases a whole host of different movies. Well, my final movie is something completely different from that. It's The Battle of the Sexes, which is getting really good buzz. Apparently, it's a real crowd pleaser. It's from the makers of Little Miss Sunshine, which I adored. I think Little Miss Sunshine is just a wonderful film. Stars Emma Stone and Steve Carell in the story of the... Now, I only know about this on the basis of what I've read about in the film. It's a true story about the exhibition match between Billie Jean King, the tennis, and Bobby Riggs, the tennis players. Because apparently Bobby Riggs was a bit of a chauvinist and said that women are secondary to men in the field of tennis. And then he challenged her to this exhibition match to see if she could beat him, and she then took up the challenge after grappling with whether to do it or not. So... immediately you've got a very interesting future between the directors of Little Miss Sunshine, two of the finest modern day actors around at the moment, tennis, and a true story, and what looks like a bit of an underdog story as well, and obviously the themes of gender identity, which are very potent at the moment, especially with a lot of discussions about pay in Hollywood and gender equality. So this looks like it's going to be one of the real crowd pleasers of the LFF.
Yeah, it really taps into that feminist agenda, which we've seen a couple of times this year, and which I think is really exciting to see that there's films tackling this theme.
Yeah. It's, I mean, Emma Stone is obviously La La Land played at the LFF last year, and I remember at the screening of that, everyone came out of that skipping and
singing and
smiling.
dancing. Yeah. I saw it in Toronto last year. I had the same thing. Everyone went City of Stars. Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. So I mean, who knows? Maybe people come out of this Emma Stone film this year, similarly happy and buzzing by the sounds of it. It's a really accomplished piece of work. And Steve Carell's a really good dramatic actor as well. I mean, a lot of the focus will go on her because she got the Oscar this year. But he's really good as well. I mean, the likes of, again, Little Miss Sunshine, Foxcatcher, The Way Back. He's a really good actor. I mean, he can do more than like the funny Anchorman stuff. Well, that's mine. Now, I know you've built up to your last one.
I don't know if I really build up to it. It just happens to be my very last.
I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, so this is Guillermo del Toro's fantasy fairy tale, The Shape of Water, which I think is maybe like his first sort of like fairy tale film since Pan's Labyrinth.
Right.
And a lot of people are saying like it's best. It's still like the film that Guillermo del Toro was born to make, because he basically absorbs a lot of like genre films from like the 1950s, a lot of like hammer horror films, Creature of the Black Lagoon, and he sort of gives this like very modern spin. So this is set during like the Cold War, so somewhere in like an underground lab. And it's about this cleaning lady, a mute cleaning lady played by Sally Hawkins. And she's not very happy in her life. She has a colleague played by Octavia Spencer, and they sort of like discover a secret. I think I can give away a little bit more. It's in the trailer. So they discover this like merman, like an amphibious creature played by Del Toro's regular Doc Jones, who performed in a couple of his films.
He played the Pale Man.
He played the Pale Man in Pan's Labyrinth. So it seems like something that like. It sounds on paper. It sounds like the perfect Guillermo del Toro film, because all his obsessions and interests are there, and I think the trailer looks absolutely gorgeous. The film got really good reviews coming out of different festivals. I wonder if this might be del Toro's very first sort of like Oscar award player. There's now obviously a lot of discussion around the Oscars, because it is a fall film festival season.
Yes.
And I really hope so, because I think he's overdue. He has made some like amazing films over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's an interesting point actually, because out of all of his films, Pan's Labyrinth is really the only one that generated that sort of attention, wasn't it? And it is remarkable when you think of the films that he has made and how distinctive they are. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I've read that a lot of this riff, like you say, riffs on creature features. It riffs on musicals as well. I've read several things, which is that music, but by virtue of the main character being silent, being mute, the music is therefore much more important in the movie. I know Alexandre Desplat has written the score. He's one of my favourite film composers, extraordinary composer, and just alone the prospect of him working with Guillermo del Toro is mouth-watering. That's a really exciting prospect. But I can't wait for that. I thought the trailer was absolutely bewitching, and
And also, yeah, it's like just a very good like supporting cast because we mentioned Sally Hawkins and Octavia Spencer, but there's also like Michael Stuhlbarg, Michael Shannon, and Doc Jones. So like you have some really talented actors working together with Guillermo del Toro, which I think is very interesting. The film doesn't open until I think in the UK until like January or February. So if you like try to catch it at the LFF, it's probably going to be one of the hot tickets.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Well, that's really quite an extraordinary lineup, I think, and just highlights like the diversity of the LFF this year. So, everyone who is watching on Kubrick Corner, thanks very much for listening, and hopefully we've inspired you to either go to the LFF or to at least note down some of these films that we've been mentioning in here. Sven, thanks so much.
Yeah, because this was only like the tip of the iceberg. Of course, there's so much more to discover. 200 film lineup. So try to find the program, go through it. It's always like a quite a nice puzzle to put together your own program. Like what can I see and when?
Yeah, so the logistics of it, isn't it? So what's on at what time and where's it showing? Because there are things that happen all over London, and then it's really, really wonderful. So that's throughout September and into October.
Yeah, and if we see you at the LFF or you see us, come and say hi.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. Well, it just falls to me to say I'm Sean Wilson, and thanks very much for watching another Kubrick Corner video. Thank you so much, Sven.
I'm Sven De Hondt, and see you soon.
Yeah, and if you're in Bristol, do go to the Watershed because it is magnificent cinema. So peace out.